Welcome to the wild city of Anchorage. Like all urban jungles, this is a city plagued by thieves and petty crime. But here in Anchorage, the culprits aren't human. They are wild animals. This unique Arctic metropolis is home to hundreds of bears, over 2,000 moose, and an unknown number of porcupines. Almost twice the average size, Anchorage's porcupines find food and refuge in the city during the bitter Alaskan winters. But life on the streets also takes its toll. Porcupines are the city's #1 roadkill. But its residents are fighting back.
We have a porcupine that was hit by a car, we presume, because when it came in, it had a broken front foot and a kind of smashed face.
But is it enough to save their favorite neighbors in this truly wild city? The snow forests of Alaska. Known as the taiga, these forests cover most of inland Alaska. That's over 500,000 square kilometers of trees. And living amongst them, some truly hardy animals. One of the strangest is the porcupine. Alaskan porcupines are almost twice the size of those found in the rest of the United States. This porcupine's ancestors originated in South America, migrating here some 3 million years ago, where they've adapted to the extreme Alaskan climate. Porcupines don't hibernate, but they somehow survive some of the harshest winters on Earth by living off their fat stores. In fact, over 50% of a porcupine is pure fat. But this fat makes them highly attractive to Alaska's carnivores. Although taking a bite from a porcupine is potentially deadly. Defending themselves with their infamous quills, very few animals mess with porcupines. But Alaska's deadliest predator sometimes takes on the challenge. Wolves can kill caribou weighing up to 200 kilos. But this porcupine's quills make it much harder to eat. When threatened, the porcupine strikes with its tail, each blow leaving hundreds of its 30,000 barbed quills embedded in its attacker's flesh. Most predators will only make this mistake once. And this wolf makes the decision to find an easier meal. These armored animals are capable of surviving almost anything the Alaskan wilderness can throw at them. But they are now coming face to face with the dangers of the urban jungle. The city of Anchorage was built right in the heart of the porcupine's territory. So the porcupines that have lived here for centuries are now being forced to live alongside humans. Living in the city does bring some benefits for the porcupines. But along with people are thousands of domesticated dogs that can be as big a threat to the city's porcupines as a wild wolf. But as the city's dog owners know, attacking a porcupine rarely ends well.
So we were out hiking with some friends of ours, and they had brought their dog as well. And we'd hiked for quite a ways, and on our way back down the hill, one of our dogs took off. Once she took off running, then the other dogs took off running. And I could immediately tell that it had to be in some kind of wild animal down there because of how they were responding.
Initially, Mary thought the dogs had stumbled across a bear feeding in someone's garden.
My husband had to go down this steep ravine and through a lot of bushes and stuff, and he saw them down there with a porcupine.
It was a large male, and they knew immediately that the dogs were in danger.
But the porcupine was not backing off, and the dogs weren't leaving either.
The dogs were just protecting their owners, but had no idea who they were dealing with.
The porcupines, unfortunately, are one that you just really don't want them to go after because of the repercussions.
For the dogs, going face to face with the porcupine was a big mistake.
You know, immediately when I saw them on the trail, I saw the quills in their faces, and it wasn't looking good. All three of the dogs had quills that were through their lips, in their nose. They had some even down in their mouth. So we got them on their leashes, and I called our vet right away.
The porcupine's armor had done the trick, even when outnumbered 3 to 1. The three dogs had dozens of quills deep in their flesh and would need a vet to remove them.
In the last 2 years, we treated 15 dogs with quills. If you don't have experience with it, trying to pull them out can create far more problems than just taking them to the vet. If people try to remove them themselves and they break off, then the quills kind of collapse and migrate. Sometimes they migrate and then come out. Others migrate and cause chronic issues.
And sometimes a porcupine's quills can even be fatal.
I did a veterinary autopsy on a dog that had died of unknown cause and discovered that the quill had migrated through the chest and into the heart, resulting in the death of the dog.
So the vet knew Mary's dogs needed urgent attention to remove the quills.
Sweet Pea seemed like she was really hurting. Of the three dogs, she was hurting the most. And so when the vet came, she took care of Sweet Pea first. She had a lot of quills all up in her nose, inside her nose and on the outside of her nose. And she probably had about 20 different quills.
The barbs on the quills would make removing them very painful.
These dogs have to be sedated or put under anesthesia, and then you'll just start pulling.
What our vet did to take the quills out was she had like a pair of surgical tweezers. She would just, take a hold of her face and then just pull them out. She still cried a little bit when they came out, even though she had been knocked out. That between the three dogs, there were 75 different quills that were in all three of them.
Incredibly, all the dogs made a full recovery.
For the most part, getting them out went pretty good, and we didn't have any problems afterwards, so I think we got them all on the first try.
Dogs may be no match for the vicious quills, but sometimes even a porcupine falls victim to the dangers of living too close to people. Cars are the biggest threat to the porcupines. And as Anchorage expands, more and more porcupines are being killed as they seek out the emerging fireweed that grows well near new roads. The zoo in the hills of Anchorage treats any injured porcupines found in the city. Today, vet Riley Wilson has a delicate operation to perform, which first means sedating his prickly patient, Peggy Sue.
We have a porcupine that had some trauma hit by a car, we presume, because when it came in, it had a broken front foot and a kind of smashed face.
But getting his needle through Peggy Sue's needles is easier said than done.
Now, one of the biologists, she can go and do this by hand, just hold on to the tail with her gloved hand, but I'm not quite that brave. That's why I use a long stick.
Round one goes to the porcupine, so Riley calls for backup.
Shannon.
The vets get the animal cornered, but then Peggy Sue decides to display her incredible climbing skills.
Most of it.
But eventually, Riley gets the sedative into the porcupine.
Well, in the jab stick, now we gotta be ready for her.
Yeah.
Now they need to be ready to catch her when she falls asleep.
Once they fall asleep, hopefully they fall asleep, we'll pull the little duffer out and trim the teeth, and then we'll trim its toenails.
It may seem a lot of fuss for such a small job, but this porcupine has serious teeth problems as a result of being hit by the car.
Most of the animals that we do get are orphaned or injured, and sometimes they come in like this with unique ongoing problems. Because of the trauma to the face, the incisors that they primarily use for chewing, they were malaligned. So you can see the misshaped teeth. We have to trim their teeth about every 2 months to keep them in right position, and they're kind of all growing in the wrong direction. Porcupine teeth are a bit more unusual than rabbits. The rabbit's tooth bud is not too far underneath the gum line. Porcupine's teeth goes all the way, the whole length of the mandible behind the molars, so there's not a way to extract their teeth. Porcupine dentistry, 101.
Her dental problems are just one of the reasons Peggy Sue can never be re-released.
Their teeth are really used for foraging, and with malalignment in the wild, it would just continually be out of whack and really get grown into the face and stuff and wouldn't survive that. But here we can take care of it and provide its food without having to go get it for themselves.
With the teeth cut back, Riley then gives the porcupine a manicure, as its claws are also overgrown, a result of not having to forage for bark in the wild.
All right.
Then Riley takes the opportunity to examine her injured leg.
The other side. I amputated her leg about 2 years ago, but she's adapted very well. Even with the one foot missing, she climbs all over.
Sadly, her injuries mean she'll never be released back into the wild. But at least she has company. Another injured porcupine, Mr. Tickles.
You're waking up just right there, kiddo. Because she's already starting to wake up, and if we're not here, they're less stressed and wake up on her own. So, and it doesn't take them too long to get up and moving around.
Peggy Sue's lack of speed meant she was unable to avoid the speeding car. But in their natural habitat, porcupines are remarkably adept at climbing. In fact, escaping into the trees is their first form of defense. But it's also vital for finding bark to eat during winter. Porcupines evolved in the warm grasslands of northern Mexico. But thanks to their huge fat stores, their formidable quills, and ability to climb, they can survive even Alaska's extreme wilderness. But their instinct to climb and forage gets them into serious dangers when they venture into the city of Anchorage. Whether it's searching for shelter, or stealing pet food, the porcupines have got a taste for city life. With porcupine incidents on the rise, the city's wildlife officer needs to be on the lookout for any signs of porcupine activity in the city's leafy suburbs. And Park Ranger Colin doesn't have to look far to find the first evidence of porcupines feeding on the ground.
Yes, this has certainly been chewed on by porcupines. There's really no other animals that would be in this area doing this. It's definite evidence of porcupine right here, all of this.
There's also evidence of winter feeding.
Some of these trees around here as well, you can see higher up where they've chewed the bark, that's what they feed on. And these are cottonwood trees that they're feeding on. But they've certainly been in this area.
Many people walk their dogs in this area, and so Colin will ensure there are adequate warnings about the potential danger of encroaching into the porcupine's territory. Luckily, most of Anchorage's residents already know where the city's animals live and know when and how to avoid them. But people sometimes use this knowledge for less humane reasons. At the Conservation Centre, they are caring for a 1-year-old porcupine that lost its leg after being caught in a trap.
So this is Kit, short for Kit Kat. He was brought here to the center last summer. He was found up at Anchorage, caught in a snare. The wire of that snare wrapped so tight around his back right leg that it had to be amputated. There was just too much tissue damage that it couldn't be repaired.
Kit Kat recovered from the operation, but if re-released, he would have struggled to find food. Also, having become used to humans, he would have been an easy target for hunters. So much so that Brad's even able to touch his defensive quills.
So that's actually one of the training things that we do with him, is getting him comfortable being touched everywhere. So it's actually good practice right now.
This unlikely bond between Brad and Kit Kat is quite unique.
So Kit here's pretty special. He is a little selective on who he'll work with. Being the first person that he worked with, he does work quite well with me. He's very smart. He's a rodent, so they do learn pretty quickly. And with him being so young, he does learn very fast.
To demonstrate Kit Kat's high intelligence, Brad has used training methods usually used only in higher mammals, like seals and dolphins. Underneath Kit Kat's often clumsy appearance lies a sharp brain that immediately learns to touch the pole to get a reward.
There we go.
Although they have a close bond, Brad would love to have been able to re-release Kit Kat to live a full life in his natural forest habitat. Life in the wild would be tougher, but a porcupine's resilience means they can withstand even Alaska's coldest conditions. Trees may be their usual habitat, but sometimes they go underground for shelter to escape the extreme cold, predators, or an even more deadly enemy. Forest fires. The sap of their favorite pine needles is highly flammable. So when a fire hits porcupine territory, it spreads very quickly. Too fast for a cumbersome porcupine. And many lose their lives in the branches. But those able to find a deep enough hole may survive. During a forest fire, however, there are other animals fighting for their lives. After a huge blaze close to Anchorage, 5 orphaned wolf pups were brought into Alaska Zoo. Not only were they dehydrated, they had been quilled by a porcupine that had entered their den to escape the fire.
A porcupine must have got down there, and so they were full of porcupine quills.
Panicked by the fire, the porcupine had seen the den as a safe haven. But once inside, the frightened pups appeared to be a threat. A defensive strike of his quills killed one of the pups, and another received an injury that would have killed it had they not been brought into the zoo.
So they had them all over. We had one that was quilled in the eye, and so they made repeated trips to the vet. The vets made repeated trips out here. They were maybe 2 to 3 weeks old, so they went into our infirmary where we could start medically assessing them, doing blood work, pulling quills. And the quill pulling was daily because they went in, but they migrated through parts of the body and then they would come out. So we'd be petting them and bottle feeding them, and we'd feel a quill and then we'd pull it out, but it was the end that had gone in. But soon enough, we stopped finding quills.
The 5 pups rescued by the firefighters all survived and have now grown into a healthy wolf pack at Minnesota Zoo. But the porcupine stranded by the fire was sadly never found. Fortunately, forest fires are one thing the urban porcupines of Anchorage don't need to worry about. With Anchorage's almost round-the-clock summer sun, porcupines are active during daylight. But they are usually nocturnal foragers. Although their eyesight is so poor, daylight makes little difference. Their hearing and sense of smell, however, are highly acute. And while they usually eat leaves and bark, in the city, they often find other foods that take their fancy. One city resident's CCTV camera caught a rather pleased porcupine eating apples on his driveway. But soon, the peaceful porcupine was joined by a large urban coyote. Coyotes do kill porcupines, but this one seems more interested in the porcupine's apples. But the porcupine stood his ground, defending his food by turning his back on the coyote and displaying his deadly quilled tail. Perhaps having been quilled before, wisely, the coyote eventually backs down, allowing the porcupine to have his fill of the apples. And once he's moved off, a fox, far too wary to have challenged the porcupine, cautiously moves in for a share in this truly wild city. Thanks to its unique anatomy, the porcupine has adapted not only to Alaska's extreme climate, but also to the many dangers here in the urban jungle.